Howdy, everybody. It is Sam Feifel, your host of your favorite little podcast about reading, literature, bookstores, and all things awesome, John Updike's Ghost. And I'm joined, as always, by my sister, the co-owner of the bookshop of Beverly Farms, and someone who gets irritated with me at the holidays because I'm not in the shop, and she is Hannah Harlow. How are you doing today, Hannah?
So irritated with you. Just kidding.
I'm just home playing around on the internet, and you're working your butt off in the store 7 days a week. I know. That's very busy. I know. And I am just dilettanting around.
I know. What are you even doing? I took yesterday off. Sunday was yesterday.
Oh, you did?
We had Sue in the shop. She held down the fort, and I did all of my own Christmas shopping.
Wow, nice job. I lied on Blue Sky then because I assumed that you hand sold. Oh man, now I just freaking completely spaced the title of the book. It's by that literary author who's a dude. It's funny.
Oh, Blood Test.
Blood Test. There it is.
I saw that we sold that. I was so happy.
I assumed it had to be you. Then I thought maybe it was a podcast listener. So
I think it was the card I wrote for it.
Oh yes, Shelf Talker.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's so weird. I just read another book that reminded me of Blood Test. It doesn't come out until next year, so I'll be talking about this more. Mm-hmm. But it's about being like prosecuted for a pre-crime, like being suspected of maybe committing. You might possibly commit a crime in the future.
Like Minority Report.
I never saw or read that.
You never saw or read Minority Report?
No.
It is a Philip K. Dick short story that got turned into a fabulous movie starring Gus's favorite actor, Tom Cruise.
Oh, yes.
And that's what it's all about, is that they prosecute people who, algorithm, but actually it's like, I don't know, it's these people that sleep in a vat of water and predict things.
I saw that part.
Yeah, they, look into the future, see that you're going to murder somebody, and then arrest you before you can do the murder.
Okay, well, quick preview. The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami is coming out on March 4th, which is going to be a big pub date. There are a lot of books coming out on my birthday, March 4th.
Wow.
But the Dream Hotel is, set in a near future where they use the algorithm, all the data available to them, and basically you've given all these companies and then hence the government permission to surveil you through all your devices.
Bad idea.
But also there's a device that people get implanted that helps them sleep.
Oh.
So that people are then being, they're using their dreams as one of the data sources of are you going to commit a crime?
Dislike. Yeah. It also is a little bit too much like my science fiction novel about the dream ray. So I'm a little bit concerned, but that's all right.
It's really good. She did a really good job. I just finished it this morning.
Wow, nice. I actually have been, post-election, have had some time on my hands. I actually wrote a little bit of fiction for the first time in a while. Yeah, I wrote about 2 hours worth of fiction the other day.
I've been trying to encourage you to do that.
Yeah, no, it's, maybe something. We'll see. It's about a guy who finds a small dog by the side of the road and then returns the dog to the police station, only to have the dog escape from the police station, causing a major Facebook riot.
Wow. Okay. Is it a short story or this is?
That's what it is right now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Speaking of short stories, I do have some short stories on my list of things that I've read today. We should probably get to our agenda. Let's last two have been a little bit more structured than I really like our podcast to be. People are going to start to worry that we're planning things and, trying to do things on purpose. And that is not what we try to do here.
Certainly no plan today.
No. So after our big holiday shopping recommendations pod and our favorite books of 2024 pod, I have done absolutely zero tactical and strategic reading, and I have read whatever I want to read. So
awesome. How many do you have to talk about?
Well, on my agenda today, I read The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I've been chatting about that a little bit. I read Graham Greene's The Quiet American. Which is spectacular. I read the full graphic novel combo package of Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. which is necessary reading in this time of Middle East unrest.
Yes.
And I read some short stories by Susanna Clarke, who has a new book out. And it reminded me that I have The Ladies of Grace Adieu, which is her short story collection, much of it set in the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell universe, which I like very well. What is on your agenda?
On my agenda, I have a couple of novels. The first is Rental House by Wang that just came out recently. I just also read What Happened to the McCrays by Tracey Lange. That comes out on January 14th. And then I read a middle grade novel with my 12-year-old son, and it is called The Last Dragon on Mars by Scott Reintgen.
I have the ARC of that, but I have not read it yet. So we'll see if that triggers me to read it. Why don't I start, because I have more books.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about Edith Wharton's Age of Innocence, and I can maybe combo package it a little bit with The Quiet American. I read Age of Innocence because I'd actually never read it before, and I have many, many books that I took from our grandfather's house when he died, and Grandma moved into different lodgings or whatever. They were going to throw out a bunch of books, and they had a big library. And so I have all these old copies of books, and so I pulled it out. It's actually a great book. He signs it in the upper right-hand corner.
Our grandfather?
Yes, he read it in 1955, I think, is when it was.
So he put his name and then the date when he read it? Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I really like it. It's a beautiful, hardbacked copy. It has an introduction from some professor whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, and it has reading group questions in the back. So it's, nice. Some kind of academic release. And the reading questions are so funny because they're so formalist. It's what does the such and such character represent? I'm like, I don't know. Represent? What does that even mean? It's all a metaphor. Not really something I really concern myself with nowadays. But, everybody knows Edith Wharton is a great writer, right? But this was written in the 1920s, about the late 1800s. It's set in the 1890s. New York City. Edith Wharton wrote about New York City kind of culture all the time. That was her sort of bailiwick. Definitely lots of Jane Austen parallels in that it's all about, society and propriety and what women are and are not allowed to kind of say and do in certain quarters, and about reputation and old families and new money. And, all the old money hates the new money, as will always be the case in the United States. But really what struck me is actually I'm on B.
Sure.
B, the book is it's incredibly compelling, even with, all the cultural references being so far away, right? It's funny and witty, and it's a beautiful love story in a way. It's kind of why is this dude kind of cheating on his wife with this woman? It's really, right. It's really sort of the one criticism I have is I think Edith Wharton doesn't do quite enough to establish why it is that our protagonist is willing to throw away his life for this Madame Olenska, the beautiful childhood love of his life. I guess she's just super hot or something.
She's super hot.
It's just unclear exactly. There's no leading up to it. It's just he just can't get enough of this chick. Which is fine, right? But what really strikes me about the book and what it really made me think about is this is popular fiction of the time, right? Yeah. Edith Wharton is a mainstream writer of the day, and the prose and the organization and just the general cant of it is so much more sophisticated than fiction that we read today. There's lots of French. There's lots of literary references. There are painters. You're supposed to just know what their paintings look like. There are, kind of global museums and operas and luminaries that you're just supposed to know who they are and understand the reference and have it be meaningful to what's going on. And I feel like novels just ask so much less of us now. You know,
for sure.
You know, and it's just, I was reading it. I was like, oh, I feel smart because I'm reading
it's also
smart thing.
It's also not the easiest reading. Like,
no, it's not easy reading.
It has complicated sentence structures and paragraphs, and like it requires you to stay engaged.
Yes, in a way that I really enjoyed.
No, I think it's great. I
just don't know who's trying to do anything like that now. And I don't know, like, are we not writing books for smart people? Am I not reading contemporary literature? Like, what am I missing?
They're out there, but that's not what's on the bestseller list.
Well, even I mean, I don't read bestseller stuff. I mean,
but what about
like prize winner stuff? Like,
right.
You know, James, not like that. Orbital, not like that. You know, these are prize winners. Like, they're
what
not
about something like she wrote Birnam Wood, Eleanor Canton?
Yeah, Birnam Wood was like that.
Not Birnam Wood, but her book before that, The Luminaries.
Oh, I didn't read that.
I think was like not the easiest reading. I mean, it was also like 800 pages. But I remember like just opening that being like, cool, it won the Booker Prize. Like, I'm going to read this. And then I was like, whoa, this is going to take more than I have right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I think it's less so much the difficulty. What's that?
I think they're out there, but yeah, it's not what we're used to seeing. Edith Wharton, I will point out, won the Pulitzer Prize in 1921 for The Age of Innocence and was the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction.
Oh, well, sorry, I didn't do that research, but I did get all the other dates right off the top of my head, so I'm feeling good.
You did. In grad school, we had to read 4 to 5 books a month and kind of write like a little 1-page response paper to the books. And we would talk to our advisor each month, like, okay, what are you going to read? Whatever. And my first semester, my advisor was like, you should put Edith Wharton on your list. And I was like, Edith Wharton, like I'd never read her before. And she like, start with The House of Mirth.
Yeah.
She's like, you're going to be surprised. Like Edith Wharton is just super gossipy. Like it is just,
it's great.
Like it's going to be fun. And she was so right. And then I read The Age of Innocence after that. So I haven't read it in, 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really remember it, but I remember loving it and remember everything you're saying sounds right.
Well, along the same lines, I read The Quiet American, Graham Greene, and, obviously it's quite a few years later. It's in the 70s, I guess he wrote that because it's all set in Vietnam. But, it's whatever, 50 years later, and it's still the same. Like they assume that you have a passing knowledge of French. They assume that you have
when did writers stop assuming we would all know French?
I don't know, but like they just throw French in there and there's no translation and you're just like left to your own devices. And I can always kind of figure out what it is. And I think that's the point, is that it doesn't need translation because anybody reading it can figure it out. But I feel like you would never really see that today. I don't know. What is that? Creation Lake?
Yeah. Which is set in France.
Like it really didn't do that, like it didn't ask that much of us. And it could have asked so much more of us. I felt like
The Quiet American was
to be this thing.
Was published in 1955, by the way.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So so I guess, the French were in Vietnam for a while before we got involved.
We
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Because that's the whole story. The story is about, The Quiet American is like this sort of well-meaning American intelligence officer who comes and steals our protagonist's Vietnamese girlfriend and, also does a little, bomb supplying to, the rebels and gets involved in shit that he shouldn't get involved in. And I didn't realize it was that much further before the American involvement in the Vietnam War.
Book I read, I think when I was still in high school, but I just read it on my own. So I felt like, I should have read this by now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't understand it at all. Like I need to read it as an adult because I feel like there was a lot that went over my head at the time.
Well, it's actually very similar to Age of Innocence in a couple of ways, in that it is this grand kind of societal commentary, but you see it through the lens of these personal relationships where, our protagonist, who's like kind of an avatar for Graham Greene, is a UK journalist who is, stationed in Saigon. And he's been, he has a wife back home that he's left, and she's Catholic and won't give him a divorce. And he's kind of shacked up with this Vietnamese woman who is using him for his money and is hoping to be married. And the reason that she leaves him for this American is because the American promises to marry her, and he can't do that because he can't get this divorce. And so, like, the relationships are all tangled up. Yes, this guy is stealing his girlfriend, but he's also supplying bomb-making materials to, these rebels, and then he saves his life, and then he hates this guy for saving his life because, it's so embarrassing. And so it's this really intimate kind of relationship play, but you learn so much about, like, global politics and the French and the Americans and what they're doing in Vietnam. And, it's just, and also I just love the way Graham Greene writes. It's just, it's very kind of noir. It's like Raymond Chandler Goes to Vietnam in some ways. Just very matter of fact. And I guess it's like, very white male in that it's really sort of unclear why this sort of aging, balding UK writer in Saigon has this 20-year-old super hot Vietnamese, concubine.
Right.
But I think he's a little bit self-aware about it, like realizes that he's kind of awful. He's also smoking opium the whole time. Like,
oh yeah, totally.
She's like constantly making, smokes like 4 friggin' opium bombs. Oh, wow. I guess you're just like super with it. And there's all these great lines like, and I found clarity with the opium. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure your mind's really clear.
Sure you did.
Which is very different, I guess, I comment obviously on the opium wars and whatnot. Yeah. But it's so weird to just have it be just a thing that they do.
Yeah. Well, I am interested in this question of like, at what point did we, stop trusting the reading public? And
I just think, I think in general, fiction. I think in general, there's an anti-intellectualism going on, and it's like not cool to be intellectual. It's not cool to be well-read. It's not cool to be like referencing, classical pieces of art. Everything needs to be right now, and I need to be talking about Dochi and Charlie XCX and all that kind of stuff. Has kind of replaced intellectualism. And I'm not saying, knowledge of, obscure writers is better than pop stars, but I just think there isn't really much like intellectual discourse. I don't really know where to find it. All the journals are going out of business, and certainly you're not going to find like 1,000-word discourses on the use of French in the Age of Innocence online. So I don't know. Both books like just made me hungry for more old classics. And part of it is, selection bias. These books, still exist on my shelves because they're the best of the best. And I'm sure in 10 years, if I just read the 5 best novels of 2024, they'll think of them as more intellectual. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading the wrong books.
Maybe. That's a great question.
Tell me about one of your books.
Okay. I have no segue to that, but I read Rental House by Weike Wang, which is a slim little novel. And in the description of it, it reminded me a lot of Sandwich by Catherine Newman, because the setup is this couple rents a house on Cape Cod, and their parents so they do a 2-week rental. In the first week, the wife's parents come to visit, and the second week, the husband's parents come to visit.
Right. Okay.
So they don't have kids. So it's not exactly the same or whatever, but it's kind of this short period of time at a rental house on Cape Cod, and the family dynamics. And in this case, the wife is Chinese American, and the husband is from like rural North Carolina.
So you get rural parents, and then you get immigrant parents juxtaposed.
And basically, like, no one really understands each other, or necessarily even really likes each other, in terms of like the parents and even their own kids, and then the in-laws, whatever. So it's just about like cultural differences and people just saying things that the other people don't understand or take the wrong way, or whatever. So there's lots of just like awkwardness and unhappiness, but also there's some humor and just like real life, like you just feel like, okay, these are some conversations that we're all kind of having, and she distills them and kind of addresses them in like a smart way. So it's an enjoyable read.
Is she local or something? She's a masshole?
No, I don't know where she lives.
Why are they on Cape Cod?
I don't know. They live in New York, and it was like they always wanted to go to Cape Cod. So they finally rented a house on Cape Cod. I know. But yeah. So it was like short read. I'd been seeing that it was getting a lot of kind of attention online. And she had a novel before this that also got a lot of attention that, we didn't really sell a lot of. And I've just never really understood, I wanted to understand what the hype was about. So right. I can see it. She's a solid writer. She wrote like a really like concise, like well-paced novel. Yeah. So, I thought it was good. I guess I didn't think it was great. I also was trying to figure out why they gave it a like early December release, which just seems like an odd time, but it is what it is, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. This is one I'm not really necessarily going to figure out, but I thought it was good.
Yeah. Well, I remember, the early December release is interesting. I was saying to Kristen and Mom and Dad at dinner last night that there really isn't like a book of the season, that's like driving people into the bookshop that they like have to have. Like it's the Obama book or, whatever. The Obama book is the real only one I can really remember that was like, oh my God, people have to have the Obama book and we're selling hundreds of them or whatever.
Yeah, you sold like 100 in a month.
Yeah, and those are $50 a pop, and so it's like, oh, hey, good money, Right. And I was saying there isn't really any like one book other than the Serviceberry, which for whatever reason is selling like hotcakes. But
that's just because it's also like an easy book to give.
Well, that's what I think. I think
book,
I mean, publishers are smart, and I've started to notice 5 years into owning a bookstore that like they do release these, and like that Susanna Clarke book.
Yes, that is a little gifty book, the new one. It's called The Wood at Midwinter.
Yeah. And, it's a beautiful book. It's hardcover. It's got that little silver foil. It's only 70 pages or something.
It's like, really short. I did actually have someone come in and kind of complain a little bit. They were like, I read that book in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like a very short story.
But it's also only like $15 or something. I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's meant to be gifty.
It's meant to be gifty. It's meant to be like a keepsake, like a, book as object that we're going to adore and like, display or whatever.
Well, it made me think like I had never actually read it, which is terrible, but I had this really gifty, beautiful copy of The Ladies of Grace Adieu. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I actually have another Susanna Clarke book that I've never read. I almost had given it to me or I found it somewhere. I don't know how I came across it. But it's similar. It's got like these beautiful illustrations for each. So I think it's got 5 stories in it. Beautiful illustrations, very similar cover with, hardcover with that like fabric-y kind of cover to it. No cloth or whatever,
Yes, bound.
Yeah. And she's amazing. Everything she writes is spectacular.
She's so good.
And it's like, there's a retelling of like the Queen Mab story. There's a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin is the one where like you spin the straw into silk or something, right?
Into gold
or whatever. Yeah. You have to guess his name, right?
Yeah.
So she takes the Rumpelstiltskin story and like puts it into fairy. It's like a fairy version of that. It's great. She does dialect so amazing. Like she has this one story that's written like in the 1300s and it's like all truncated English and weird words and like,
wow.
But I was reading it and like, it's so well done that like, it was hard. And then it just like locked in. And I was like, oh my God, this is effortless actually,
awesome.
Like you just,
and you just have to get into the,
you just have to understand kind of, you have to hear the voice, I think in your head,
Yeah.
But it's just, I was reading it like on Sunday morning with the fire. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like where I want to be with my life. Exactly. Like I'm doing exactly with my life what I want to be doing. And I wish she was like, she should be a superstar. I think she is.
I think she kind of is.
Is she? I mean, she's only written 2 books.
Well, that's the thing. She's not really producing enough to like really, she's like a Donna Tartt. Like when she does have a book, it's a bestseller. She sells a crap load of them. They're amazing, but it's like she's only putting out one book every 10 years. And so in between, like her publisher, I think, is trying to like seed the market. Like, don't forget about
releases.
her. Yeah, here's like this tiny short story. It's all we got.
Well, there's that beautiful like 20th anniversary edition of Mr. Strange, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
I always say Dr. Strange.
I know, it's not Dr. Strange.
Like,
that goes all the way back to our first episode.
Yes.
But yeah, like, it's a gift edition of that people could get.
Yes. They've done a really nice job publishing her, I think.
Yeah, I love the show, too. If people haven't seen the BBC adaptation.
I haven't seen the show.
What? Oh, my God. It's so good. It makes me want to go watch it again, actually. What's the other book?
Speaking of little gifty books,
yeah,
I don't think I've talked about What the Chicken Knows.
No.
By Cy Montgomery. And that is also like this little small package because it's basically like a long essay about chickens. And they've been putting these out, or Cy has been putting these books out. Like she did one, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget.
There's the octopus one that I've sold a couple times.
But that's a longer one, right? Like she has these these little books. Like one was on the Hawks. Was on Hawks or something. Anyway, I forget. She had two previous little long essays that were packaged in this small format, and we've sold them really well. Cy Montgomery lives in southern New Hampshire, so she's very well known in this area. She's also very prolific.
She's local. Okay.
Yeah, she is wonderful, and she's an animal
lover. Time in Turtles? Is the Time in Turtles a short one?
No, that's a long one. Hawk Way, maybe something Way.
Oh my God.
The Hummingbird's Gift.
The Hummingbird's Gift is one of them. That was last year.
That's a short one too.
Yep, that's
May of 2021.
Okay, that was.
Oh, there is the Hawk's Way. Yeah, that was 2022. Yeah, they're both in May. I wonder why they finally figured out that it's a good gifty book, I guess, and put it out in December.
Right. So, What the Chicken Knows is a delightful little book about chickens, obviously.
I would hope so.
So, Cy has always kind of kept chickens for the past 20 years or whatever. And so it's a mix of memoir and research about, all the things we didn't really know about chickens.
Well,
that they're really social creatures. They kind of remember you. They bring you gifts. They seem to be quite delightful.
Oh my God, I loved my chickens. We had 4 chickens for 5 years until Kristen didn't like them anymore and we had to get rid of them. But they're the best little pets. They're so charming. They come around and greet you.
She talks about how, and they have personalities. So some like to be pet a certain way. Some like to be held a certain way.
Yeah. They're wicked dumb. They're almost as dumb as cows. They're so dumb.
I mean, I feel like she talks about how smart they are, though.
They're not smart. That's the lie. I don't believe it. They don't learn anything, they fall for the same crap over and over again.
I feel like she had some things to say about that.
I
listened to this book. It was like a short audio. It was like an hour and a half or 2-hour audiobook.
Oh, that's cool.
And Cy reads it, and her joy is really infectious. And also when she talks about and then all the chickens came running, and you kind of, in your head, you can kind of hear
that's what they do. They have the funniest little talk. I always want to get chickens, but Chris
really cute. Yeah. And it did make me want to get chickens until I got to the end of the book where it does talk about all the predators. Hawks, and
that's what happened to our
chickens. Have in our backyard. Yeah. Right. We have lots of predators in our backyard.
You guys could totally have chickens. You have so much space. What you do is you need to build them a big enough run so they never actually go outside, but they have enough room to cruise around.
Right. Well, we'd have to really shore up our barn, which has many, many, many holes, and it would be a disaster right now.
Yeah, then the weasels get in there and rock them or whatever. We have this great photo of a giant fox, a 50-pound fox, leaning 2 paws up on the door of our chicken coop, just staring in at our chickens.
No.
But that's how we lost them all. We had a hawk get one and decapitated it, and we had coyote got one.
No
thanks. Yeah, but I just want to
Yeah, Kristen has whole stories about how the only time our chickens would ever get murdered is when I was on a work trip. I remember one time.
Sam's going away.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened, but I remember one
here we
time I was
go.
in London and it was like, 10 o'clock at night, and I was like all hammered after some business dinner, and the phone rings and it's Kristen. And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? Kristen's calling. And she's like, there's a dead chicken on the walkway. And she had like all four little kids with her. I was like, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh, I got to read that.
There seem to be a lot of chicken fans out there. I think it's for chicken fans or chicken wannabe fans, of which I am one.
Yeah, you guys need chickens. That's another, but it is a good gift. It's only like $23. It's,
yeah, it's adorable.
Good little present book. Speaking of present books, I actually read that Persepolis because my daughter got it for me for my birthday.
Oh, wow.
She's she likes buying me graphic novels. We sort of bond over graphic novels. And also I wanted to read it because Persepolis is like pretty iconic. I don't know if it won a Pulitzer or something, but it won lots of awards. It got made into a movie. Marjane Satrapi is famous, for a variety of reasons. For people who don't know, it's about her childhood growing up in Iran. Her family, I think she leaves out some points sometimes to make herself slightly more sympathetic. Okay. Because her family is clearly very wealthy, right? So like every problem she ever has, like she gets bailed out by her rich family. And so there, it's like, okay, yes, super repressive regime, I get it, but you just happen to be able to go to school in Austria. We're taking a trip to Italy. We're out of here. We got bailed out of jail when my dad paid the 20,000 whatever dollar equivalent fine. And there's lots of the regime comes in, she's related to like one of the guys that gets deposed and murdered when the, Ayatollahs and all those guys come in. And, so she's very like intimately involved with it. And I think it's an important book because it makes very human a lot of the strife that's going on in the Middle East right now. There are lots of references to Palestine and Gaza. There, all of the sort of, it just is very straightforward about how, and you say these things and people think you're like a conspiracy theorist, but very straightforward about how the U.S. and Britain, 100% helped to overthrow the government of Iran because they were going to socialize the oil reserves and they didn't want that to happen. They wanted it to stay in private hands so that they can continue to monetize it and get profits and suck profits dry out of the Middle East. And whoops, we got the Ayatollah, who is not exactly our friend. And it just, kind of talks about how this oppressive Islamic regime comes in, takes over. And, when she was young in school, they didn't have to wear headdresses or any of that thing. By the end, it's, full Islamic gear and you got to wear the thing. And
does she live in the United States now?
I don't know. At the end, it's like she's still in Iran. She returns to Iran to be in her homeland. They have she and her family have this big sense of nationalist pride. They want to be in Iran. They want to be part of the future of Iran. And so I think that's the interesting part is like, how can you sort of have this loyalty to a nation that has, repressed you and thrown your friends and family members in jail just for having parties, and you can't wear lipstick, otherwise they're going to come and cane you, and And it's like, how could you still retain this sense of positive national identity while that's happening? And it's also like, for what just happened in Syria, everybody's, yay, Assad's gone, but the dudes who came in are all former Al-Qaeda and are going to 100% put in Sharia law. So sucks to be a woman in Syria, maybe Assad wasn't all that bad for some of those people. And, how you navigate that. And, I think there's some really interesting feminist stuff in there because, can you be a feminist and support Sharia law? Can you be a feminist and believe we need to keep our heads covered at all times and never wear any makeup. And, it's just a super interesting kind of look at growing up in a environment that we would really not have any sort of touch points.
Right. And I think it was published like almost 20 years ago now.
I think 2001. Yeah, I think it was 2001 too, somewhere in there. Yeah. But I guess I just had problems with it. Like, I don't know. She went to art school. She's an art school. Like, I think the illustrations are kind of clunky and lame.
Okay.
That didn't really do anything for me.
Right.
And I don't think she's like the greatest visual storyteller. There's times where it just felt really kind of paint by numbers. And I don't know. I think.
Right. Like, why did she choose to make it a graphic novel?
Yeah, exactly. I get why, because I think that's how she was trained. And I get why it got a lot of attention. But like in terms of like graphic novels that like I loved and I would revisit, like I would never really be all that compelled to revisit this. But there were definitely times where I was like, oh, wow, this is like the instruction manual to what's going on in the Middle East right now. So like, important.
So it's important. Right.
But I was, I don't know. There were times where I was like, oh my God, this isn't that good.
Okay. I think we overlook certain things.
Yeah, I think we do. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. My next book is What Happened to the McCrays by Tracey Lange.
Oh, yeah.
And this book is really the story of a marriage.
The novel? Fiction? What is it?
It's a novel. It's fiction. Tracey Lange's had some other books, and we've always sold like 3 copies. Like it's always been like pretty decent.
Right.
Sell through. And I was curious, and I picked up this novel because it was free to me on audiobook. So I listened to
audiobook,
it. Yeah. Yep. And it goes, you have alternating perspectives between the wife, Casey, and the dude, the husband, who has been gone for a couple of years, and now he's come back to town.
The husband has come back to town.
Well, they're divorced at the moment, but he comes back to town, and something has happened, but it takes a little while for it to come out, and it actually didn't bother me how long it took for you to figure it out. Like there were these clues, so you like kind of knew, but you didn't really find out completely until maybe like the midpoint or whatever. But there was a tragedy in the past, and they like couldn't really deal, and he ended up leaving. And she stayed in town. It's like the town they grew up in. And they were like high school sweethearts. But I found their story like really affecting. Like I just got to this point where I was like, I have to know what happens. Like, are they going to make it? Are they going to get back together? And the story is told. So he comes back to town because his dad, who lives across the street from his ex-wife, has had a stroke and he needs some help. And Casey's been helping out, but she can't, do it all on her own or whatever. So the husband comes back to take care of his dad. And he used to be this like big high school hockey star.
Uh-huh.
And the current like middle school hockey team, like they lost their coach and they have been struggling and they really need somebody. Yeah. So he starts coaching the hockey team. So it's kind of the like hockey team season.
Where is it set? Like Minnesota or something?
It's set in upstate New York.
Okay. Not very many places with middle school hockey teams. Right.
That take it this seriously.
Yeah. We have to combine with 4 other high schools to even come up with a high school hockey team.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm sort of like, is this a thing? Like, the wife is like managing the team, and I'm like, who has a manager?
I guess.
And then I was like, and who has coaches that aren't just like some dad filling in?
Is it school affiliated or is it like a travel team?
It's a travel. It's unclear. It's a travel team, but like the high school hockey coach, who's like the athletic director, is like, I can't really coach it. I have too much going on, but like, maybe I can take it over after the new year if I have to, but then, they get this guy. I don't know. So maybe there are just some things where you have to like suspend your disbelief, and that's totally fine. I was fine with it. It's mostly their relationship, but I found the hockey storyline like it was like a nice.
You liked this hockey story?
I did. I don't mind a good sports storyline where especially it's like underdogs. Like, can they make it? Can they,
I do like a little sportsy underdog story. That's for sure. Sure.
I'll just say, and I've had this problem with a couple other novels. that there's like the tragedy that happens is like pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a book where you sort of need a trigger warning.
Oh.
Or I feel like as a bookseller, I need to give a trigger warning. But then if you do, you're giving the book away.
Oh. Yeah.
And this is just one of those things like I haven't really figured out completely how to handle.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can say like, oh, there's some heavy shit in there, but I mean, you can't give away too much of a trigger. I don't know.
Right. And I think, the author handles it well, so that like when I did find out about it, like I did feel like kind of prepared, like she dropped enough hints.
Right.
And then like she didn't dwell too long. Like she didn't like, it wasn't melodramatic. I wasn't
Right.
crying actually, it was just kind of like, yeah, it was this shitty thing. We have to talk about it. Okay. Now we can move on. And it's more about how this couple handled it and, can they get through it?
It's funny. For some reason, it reminds me, I'm watching Superman and Lois on Netflix. Or no, it's on HBO or something. Very similar storyline in that they come, Superman and Lois move back to Smallville is the whole thing.
Oh,
and so it's like Superman dealing with his high school girlfriend. And then like, I was supposed to take seriously, like I can't in any way take seriously high school romances, and so like there's like Superman's kid is like dating in high school or whatever, and it's like, oh, big deal, and I'm like, no, I mean, no, that's high school.
Not a big deal.
Who gives a shit?
Right.
Which would be similar to high school, middle school hockey team, probably. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
There's only so much I can care about middle school hockey.
Yeah, mostly it's like you care about these two characters. I thought she just did a really good job of making me care about these characters because I was like really invested and I wanted to know what happened.
Sounds a little Nicholas Sparksy, I gotta say.
It was not that bad.
Whoa, I liked that Nicholas Sparks book.
Did you?
Were they Christian? Is there any religion?
There's no religion.
I think Nicholas Sparks is just romance plus God. That's
This is like, I mean, it's obviously a love story. And there's like a little hanky panky, but like, it's not like a romance.
Oh, it's literary. You're saying it's literary.
It's what we need a new term for women's fiction.
Literary,
but this is like very solidly
literary.
In the women's fiction category.
Oprah
it's
book.
Literary light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wally Lamb? I don't know. I've never read
Wally Lamb. Ouch. Ow. Shot across the Wally Lamb bow. I think he thinks he's literary. Like,
I don't know. I've never read him.
Well, I never read him either, but he's like the pride of UConn's literature department. I mean,
really? Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
I've never read him either. I think he would blanch at that.
We don't know what we're talking about.
I was actually we have like everything Wally Lamb wrote because he's from Connecticut. He
has a new book coming out next year.
Oh, really? Because I was just looking at the bookcase the other day. I was like, what has Wally Lamb done lately? Not anything really. But I'm sure he's doing something. I just haven't noticed.
You said Oprah.
Yeah, I was. Wally Lamb on Oprah? I don't know.
Yeah, what was his like early?
Oh, he was like the original.
He was like an OG
probably.
Oprah pick.
Yeah, I totally was. Yeah. I remember that now. Well, Oprah can pick him, I guess. I don't know.
I just mean like, family drama. You're gonna feel things.
Right. There's no lasers. There's no,
there are no dragons.
Fantasy, no
like
dragons.
In my next
book. Well, dragons. I think I talked about all my books already. So why don't we move into your dragons? Actually.
Wow, what a good segue. Dragons.
Well, it's a middle school book.
It is a middle school book.
So one of the reasons we're talking about it is Kristen was looking for books for my middle school aged nephews and saw this Last Dragon on Mars book amongst our books in the shop for middle schoolers and wondered, is it any good? I said, I have the ARC, but I didn't read it because I thought the cover was crappy. But you're saying it's good.
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. So
is it part of a series? That was the other reason I didn't read it because I felt like I was coming in.
Pretty sure it's the first. Pretty sure they're going to continue. Yeah.
I thought it was like maybe third, and I was like,
I think it ends on a cliffhanger. Like not a cliffhanger, but it sets it up for there's going to be more, for sure. I have a 12-year-old, seventh grader who was a big fan of the Wings of Dragon. Oh, is that what it's called?
Wings of Fire?
The Wings of Fire, sorry.
Yeah.
The Wings of Fire series. And has kind of, outgrown that a bit.
Yeah, that's babyish for him at this point.
Yeah. So again, this is another audiobook. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks lately because
that's all right.
I'm too busy.
Mm-hmm.
And also I've been reading books that come out next year and I'm just not prepared to talk about them.
I don't think you need to be defensive about your audiobook habits, actually. This is a judge-free zone.
Okay, thank you. So Wells and I were in the car and he said, what audiobooks do we have? And I said, I downloaded this new one. I think you're going to like it. So we started it. We're driving from somewhere, maybe from visiting you guys in Portland. So we had like an hour and a half in the car. So we listened to the first hour and a half and we got home and he said, Mom, would you be offended if I go up to my room and keep listening?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cutting you out.
And then basically he went up to his room and listened for 4 hours and then came down and was like, I'm done.
They set it on 2X or whatever and zipped through it.
He loved it.
Yeah.
And then he listened to it 3 more times in a row.
Wow. Okay.
Which is what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he also was like, I need more dragon books. So then he went and found Aragon in the Libby library,
Yeah.
On the library.
Aragon is great. I've read Aragon multiple times. I think that
So he's like, Mom, do you know this book? And I was like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So then he listened to all 4 of those books.
Is there only 4? I thought there was 5 now. That's
think there's
Murtaugh is 5.
5.
Yeah. Murtaugh is 5. Yeah.
Which came out kind of significantly after the first.
Yeah. Just
4.
this year. We talked about it, I don't know, 10 pods ago or something.
So I don't think he's done Murtaugh yet, but he did the other 4. So anyway, this really kicked off a dragon habit.
Aha.
But anyway, it's just solid. The premise is Mars has been colonized and the main character was born on Mars. He's kind of one of the first gen Martians.
Yeah.
And he's an orphan and he's, living in poverty with all these other orphans and they have nothing. And Mars is basically dying.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't have enough food. All their plans to be able to grow food haven't worked.
Yeah.
But the premise of this world is that all the planets and moons have dragons who are their avatars. I think even Earth has one.
There's a dragon that lives there. They are the personality of the planet, the dragon. Yes. Just one.
Just one. So some I think have had others because they managed to clone them or whatever or something. Their babies being born. I forget.
What is the reproductive cycle of the dragons in this book? Come on now.
Right. Well, so when Earth colonized Mars, they killed Mars's dragon. He was an evil dragon and they killed the dragon. But that also meant kind of condemning the planet. They didn't realize the planet would also
can't just kill off the planet's dragon, pretty obviously. Right.
Yes.
Almost. Yeah.
So this is what you find out at the beginning. You have the
backstory.
End of Act 1 is surprise. There's this baby dragon that is not, it's like a moon dragon or something. So it's not quite as powerful as the planet dragons. But the dragon picks our main character to be his rider.
Oh, there you go. Much like Aragon got picked. Yeah.
So the Martian military has been keeping the dragon secret because it's too young to kind of unveil. Hasn't reached its full power. So they don't want everybody to know that they have a dragon because they're I don't know, battles or their power struggles with other planets and moons and dragons and whatever.
Yeah. Why wouldn't there?
Anyway, so I found, there's a bunch of world building that happens and it whatever, it mostly worked.
All right. I've got
clearly
it
having some trouble explaining it.
I get it. Maybe I'll read it. It's funny because it's bleeding over into, I don't even talk about it because at this point it's an addiction, but I'm now into the 4th book of the Expanse series on audiobooks. So now I just listen to the Expanse series, essay Corey's.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And it's I'm listening to my stories. It's actually, it's mostly this one dude, the reader guy. His voice is very comforting. I'm just driving around.
That's nice. Love when you find a good narrator.
Yeah, and like I'm only kind of mildly paying attention. There are definitely times where I'm like, wait, what just happened? What's going on? But like he does a good it's two guys do a good job of like one character was not in book 1, was in book 2, was not in book 3, and is now a main character in book 4. So like these characters kind of come and go, and Mars is one of the big pieces, and so all the people on Mars were feeling pretty good about themselves for the first 3 books, but then at the end of book 3, they discover this portal to 1,000 other worlds, and all of those worlds have like water and air and and so everybody on Mars is like, this place blows, let's get out of here. And so everybody, all the like the Mars like patriots are like, what are you doing? We have to stay here and fix Mars. And everybody's like, this place blows. We can't even go up top. Let's go to a place that's more like Earth.
Oh, well, yeah, there are some similarities there because, these guys, the Martian, our main character is like, we got to save Mars. And they realize that this dragon could maybe help them save Mars.
Yeah.
So
they could use it because their terraforming efforts on Mars are very slow. So
yeah, but I also like it just because I think it is a great book for like a middle school boy. And it, like the it just has like, it's not like there's like a lot of slang or, but it just feels a little fresher than some of these other books, and like it just feels just like what kids now would want to read.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard. Finding books for middle school boys is one of the hardest things.
I think it's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, even for a high school boy, most, like if he's
that's also really hard.
If he's not into literature, then, there's only so much, and like you end up getting sports books, and sports books aren't always that well written.
Yeah. And I've been trying mysteries. So I just feel like,
Gus likes history, Agatha Christie.
Like a good plot driven, right. So you go to like Agatha Christie or whatever, but
pretty dated.
It's pretty top, right? You want something a little more contemporary, maybe.
Yeah, and and the contemporary stuff generally is pretty graphic. There's not a lot of like cozy mysteries for high school boys.
Right, because then the cozies are like, oh, it's a cat in a cafe or whatever. And
yeah, it's all old frizzy-haired women. Yeah, exactly. Which high school boys are not known for being super into necessarily.
Totally. Anyway.
All right. Well,
so I think that's it.
I know. I have to figure out what I'm going to read to bridge the gap to Christmas because I can't buy any books for myself.
You're not allowed to buy any books.
I know that I have lots of books on my list.
You will be here in the shop a week from today, and we got 2 full shelves of ARCs for you to choose from.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So if you are listening to this, I will probably get it out before. I'm almost definitely sure I'll get it out before the 16th, which is when I will be in the shop all day shucking books to all the customers that come in. And
I'm taking the day off for what?
Yeah, you have the whole day off. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. You can do the rest of your Christmas shopping that might be left over.
Well, good, because I haven't gotten one for you yet.
Oh, well, there you go. We got your Christmas present yesterday. We were out Christmas shopping in Portlandia all day long and acquired many presents. Should any of our listeners be going Christmas shopping, remember, only bad people don't bring cash to artsy Christmas sales because that is what you're supposed to pay for art stuff with. Cash, don't give 3% to the mean financial god in the sky.
Were you at an art craft sale yesterday?
Maybe I was. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. No, we went to many of them because Portland has.
That's what you do every year. So
yes, I don't like to buy Christmas presents from corporations. I think
totally. I went to a couple of pop-ups yesterday.
Yeah, that type of thing. I like just like us. We do a third of all of our revenue in December, something like that. Most artists and musicians do like a third of all of their annual revenue in November, December. And if you pay them through Square, they A, lose 3% of it, and B, have to tell the government about it. If you give them cash, they don't have either of those things happen. So give them cash.
Cool. Yeah. I was just making it clear that we weren't talking about ourselves.
No, you should pay for cash with us too.
We like cash too, obviously.
Cash is
but
better.
We tell the government about everything, unfortunately.
We do that. It was funny because I had a bunch of, because I get paid in cash a lot. So I was paying in cash all day yesterday, and then we're in this jewelry store, and Kristen's like, "Oh, Sam, you've got some cash left over," and I was like, "Actually, I think this jewelry store does report their earnings to the government.
Right, yeah.
We could use a credit card.
We're going to use a credit card,
debit card, whatever it happens to be." All right, you can shop however you want. Don't let us be fascist in our descriptions of the way that you shop. You just shop any old way you want out there, podcast listeners in the sky. Our favorites of 2024 is doing very well. So,
that's good to hear.
Yeah, bumper.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Bumper episode. Yeah, there are 5 people, according to our Spotify Wrapped, where we are their most listened to podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I don't think we have 5 relatives that listen to podcasts. So at least one of those people has to not be related to us, I bet. So, yeah, his name is Paul.
One of them might be our husband. Oh no, because
they're related to us. Yeah,
but he
Rick, and it can't be Rick Johansson because Rick listens on YouTube. So who knows who this Spotify?
Who are these people?
I don't know.
This is so great.
I don't know. Shout out Rick, our biggest fan ever, who got us on YouTube, and now we do like 50 listeners a month or a week in YouTube, which is good. So, all right, let's wrap it up. Any other messages for the people?
No, just Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We're not gonna have another one before Christmas, probably. But so anyway, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.